What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Inconsequential Gaming. So, today things are going to be a little different because I've run into like a lot of problems, and I'll discuss all of those problems later because that's not why you're here. So, why are you here? Well, it seems like I've been patiently waiting for the 1.3.6 update, but instead it's more like a 1.40 update labeled as Terraria Journey's End. It's almost one of those things where you feel like you won the lotto and you go to show up for $300,000, but then they tell you that there's been a mistake and you actually won 3 million. So yes, I'm not angry at all. As I've said, I feel like for a very long time that Terraria has been a complete game, and more Terraria is, I feel like at this point, a bit overwhelming for me because I'm still trying to discover the things that already exist in the game, which is another reason why it is that I don't use mods. But now we're getting more. I mean, I can't be upset at that. So we're getting more Terraria, and it seems like we're getting a lot more Terraria. And there's a lot to discuss because of it. So I guess just sit back, relax, and yeah, let's talk about it. So as you can probably tell, this is post commentary. And the reason I'm doing post commentary is because we've had a series of power outages in my area, and the power and internet go on and off randomly, and they're not really that reliable. So, as hard as I tried to get you the normal quality videos that you're used to, didn't work out. So, yeah, for now, this is as good as I guess I can get. But don't be disappointed because it's going to be worth your while. It's sort of like one of those blessings in disguise because though we're talking about the Terraria journeys and spoilers, I'm also going to be talking about my own personal spoilers. And this is going to be a big set of spoilers. Well, I'm not sure if I'll talk about them or if I'll just show them to you. But yes, this is me trying to play on the server, and then I just get kicked. Just get kicked right out, and there's nothing I can do about it. And I know you can't tell by watching this, but I tried 4 times, and I think I got lucky because my save didn't get corrupted. So I just decided not to press my luck and then just go ahead and do what I could with what I had, and it wound up being pretty good. So yeah, I hope you're not disappointed. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about. So I just want to go over the topics that I want to cover really quickly. So there's the mini map. There's a lot of little details that I noticed with that, and I find that to be really cool because, as you can see, I'm not really into using the mini map all that much. I might turn it on occasionally if I'm traversing through some caverns that maybe I digged out, and I might have put some shortcuts here and there, and it'll help me kind of lead my way back to them. So yeah, they are useful, but I mostly keep it off because it's not really that great to look at in my opinion. So the idea of minimap borders is actually a pretty cool concept. I like it. It allows you to personalize, I guess, the game in that little bit more of a way. It's sort of like the UI zoom and things like that. So more customization, I feel like, is always cool in a game. And it kind of reminded me of Star Wars, The Old Republic, in a lot of ways. That's another game that I enjoy. So there's a brick replacer or brick swapper. I'm not sure exactly what the name of that is going to be. I'm not sure if it's going to be something that you have from the beginning, if it's going to be a tool, sort of like the backpack tool, it's kind of difficult to create, but it's sort of one of those tools that you create with the cement layer and like the wrench, and it makes like this one really cool backpack that makes building a lot easier. I'm not sure if the brick swapper or replacer is going to be an actual like accessory or just something that you can do from the very beginning. I don't know. That'd be interesting. I'm interested in seeing how that works. The mushroom biome with the little lanterns. Now, that's interesting to me, only because as a person who makes adventure maps, there's an area that I was working on that kind of had the same concept of natural lanterns because of what it's based off of. So that was really cool to look at. And I don't think I've ever revealed that area that I've been working on to anyone. So the fact that like I kind of feel like me and the team at Terraria are on the same page as far as like designing areas goes, like that makes me happy. It also makes me excited for this update too. The thing with the xenon moss, the krypton moss, the argon moss, and maybe there's more kinds. I always liked the lava moss. I'm not sure if that's what it's called, but it was a certain depth that you could go where you would start seeing the red moss, and I always thought that was pretty neat. If it's possible that can exist in other layers, but you know, kind of in a different color, I'm definitely looking forward to something like that. That would be cool, because I always felt like the natural lighting in this game was a neat concept, and the fact that there's going to be more of it is really cool. I like it. Now, this is one thing that I'm really looking forward to that you'd be surprised to hear, because I hardly ever get to use it, but I think my excuse would be it's still in its kind of beta stage, so I've never touched it because I feel as though like it's a little too niche, and I don't think it would get used enough to kind of make sense in the way that I play Terraria. But that is world seeds and world generation. Now, the thing with seeds, if I have to explain it, you know, and I guess I will, but briefly, it's sort of like when you generate a world, it has its own personal identification number. And when you do that, and you know what the number is, you can share it with other people as long as they understand, or I would say know, what your seed identification number is. Which means that if you get a really unique world, you can share it with other people without necessarily like carrying over everything else that you added, like any of the houses that you built. None of that. It's sort of like it's your pure, unadulterated world with all of its natural features and distinctions. So, you know, I guess if you have something cool where you generate a world where the pyramid is all the way outside the sand, you know, that's sort of like a cool thing you could share. So that's something I'm looking forward to, because I would rather, to be honest, start worlds on interesting seeds. And you know, I do like the idea of a randomly generalized world, but I don't know. Like I do like the idea of like a person having a really unique map and then just kind of pulling what they have and building on it to kind of see what I do that's different from them. So I saw some things in the desert, which would be the torches, the oasis biome, and desert flora, which I thought was interesting. Now, this is cool for me because the desert, in my opinion, was kind of barren. Ha ha ha. But what I mean by that is that it wasn't really much to see. You would occasionally have a pyramid, and you would have cactus, and the underground desert, which I feel is kind of a new thing, but it's not really much there. At least I've never experienced it, because I've kind of used old world seeds like a lot, so I'm new to a lot of the content. Oh, and excuse me for the slow moving gameplay in the background. Like I was using my potato of a PC to record footage because it's a little bit more reliable. But the reason this is here, to kind of excuse the what you're seeing, because I want you to be able to tolerate it, is I want to show you that I enjoy mini games in Terraria, and though I don't share it a lot, I've created a mini game called Boulder Ball, and you'll get a chance to see what that looks like. It's going to be really choppy, and because the frames like tank ridiculously when I try to record footage, but it was the only reliable way I could, because that was a crash that you saw. I was actually trying to get you some wholesome footage, and the server crashed on me because the power went out. So yeah, that's what I'm going through. But yes, the desert was kind of boring. Not much to see there as far as like visuals, and I guess maybe treasure is concerned. I mean, there wasn't really anything that I can think of that you would find in the desert that you couldn't find anywhere else, except for maybe the loot from the enemies that you kill. And I would say the enemies were probably the most exciting thing, but that's just in my experience. I'm not sure, but I would assume because of what they've added to the desert that I must be right to a certain degree. But again, I don't know enough about the game to be sure. I would just say in my personal experience, the desert has kind of always been boring, which would justify the torch, the oasis, the scarab bombs, and then of course it looks like a sandstone chest was added, which is also interesting now that the desert has its own unique chest. I kind of like that. So yeah, I want to start talking about some of the stuff that interests me personally now. So I briefly discussed the mini games, and of course new enemies. I'm not against that. I feel like new enemies in Terraria, I guess that's always going to be interesting, but and this is me, and it's probably the fact that I'm an old person, but I feel like there's already enough distinct enemies in Terraria, and I feel like there's enough bosses already. But I mean, new enemies and new bosses, I guess during certain events, I guess that's always cool, because I wasn't upset at the Blood Moon edition. I mean, I thought that was pretty neat. But it seems as though they're adding more, I would say, Blood Moon features to more distinct biomes that really weren't affected by it, which would be the ocean biome. Because that's one of the things that I did when I felt like I had the blood event under control. I think the first thing that I did was try to see what was different in the ocean biome, and it was pretty much the same. I just recall there being a lot more enemies there, but nothing distinct. Just, I guess it made it a lot easier to farm sharks and jellyfish for black ink, and that's about it. But yeah, there's a new boss and everything that comes with the Blood Moon, I believe, so that's going to be cool. But to speak a little bit more on mini games, I saw the golf mini game, and I do know that the features with the beach ball were improved. So yes, you can have a legitimate game of volleyball in Terraria now, and you can use projectiles. So it can be a volleyball game using maybe only like magic spells. Like you can get really creative with that now, I believe. So that's also a really cool feature. So the things that I'm looking forward to, let's get back on track. So let me go through them really quick. Well, as quickly as I can. So master mode. Now I've discussed this before, but one of the things that I was actually looking forward to was I had it self-labeled as a nightmare mode. And I guess be a little bit more specific, I came into Terraria in a rather odd way. And I used to play on servers only, and then I had my own world. My own world was peaceful, and I never really knew what a wall of flesh was. I didn't even know about hard mode. I didn't even know there was like a way to increase the difficulty in your game. But I was on a server where it was on hard mode already, and I was starting out as a new character. Now, this was an interesting experience because the game is a lot different when you're playing on hard mode. I think, at least in normal mode, when you kill enemies, they usually just drop pieces of like I would say they drop pieces of crafting material, and if they do drop a weapon or an accessory, it's nothing really to write home about. But they do drop things, but it's very rare, and it's usually just a slight boost. In hard mode, though, and it might be pretty much the same concept, but because my character was new, a lot of the drops seemed significant. So there was a huge increase in power to my new character when I would kill enemies. Well, when I would manage to, because they were very difficult to kill. And I guess you can imagine that, me being a new player and everything. But I adapted to it, and things like the blood moon and eclipses, a solar eclipse, I couldn't really tell the difference. So because I was used to a blood moon, which was a lot more difficult on hard mode, when an eclipse happened, I just assumed that it was a blood moon, and I went out to try to fight enemies, and I remember getting shot with a laser by a zombie. And to me, nightmare mode would be having a new character that's not necessarily straight off of the frying pan new, but sort of like you have maybe at least water bolts, maybe at least golden armor, where you could at least fight back. But the enemies are so challenging that you really have to be careful and strategize about how you approach them, because they can overwhelm you in 1 or 2 hits. And that's sort of a mode that I was looking forward to, that I feel like kind of happens when things get out of control, after you killed a certain amount of bosses, in hard mode naturally. But I was thinking, once you get to a point where you're wearing a full set of Moonlord armor, I mean, it can still happen, but you're so powerful at that point that, like, as long as you can kill the enemies first, it's not usually a problem. However, nightmare mode is something that I'm looking forward to, because the idea of feeling as though I'm a new character who's competent at playing the game, but I'm playing on hard mode and I don't have any hard mode items yet. That experience that I had first playing this game is something that I've been seeking for a while, and I'm hoping that master mode is something similar to that. And I like the addition of the HP bar on the bottom of the screen, which reminds me of another game that I play, Vindictus, where in certain modes where you fight bosses, you'll see their health bar. So I like that distinction where it's almost a different game. Now I'm hoping that master mode has its own specific distinctions from any other mode, in the same way that I think expert mode does from I would say maybe like a normal map. Only because, for example, in expert mode, enemies use different attacks, and also the way that they drop loot is a bit different, especially with bosses, with the loot bags and then the items that you can get. So I like the distinction between the two different modes, and I'm trusting that master mode has its own distinct things, and I think the HP bar is a good start. That looks really cool. Okay, So another thing that I wanted to cover just briefly was the new food items. Um, that's interesting to me because I always thought that some food items should have really distinct buffs. Um, because they always go well with using potions, but it's always that slight buff and of course the health regeneration. But I felt as though it would be interesting to have things a lot closer to the alcoholic beverages like the sake and the ale, where there's sort of a trade-off. And I'm wondering if the food items are going to do that. But now you can have a legitimate pizza party, so I think that's pretty cool. I know that's like one of those little small things, because I'm not sure how far they're going to go with the food items. I did see that it looks as though some of them could be placed. So I mean, you could have a legit pizza party where, you can generate a party and then like the food that everyone eats is pizza. But I'm not sure how far they're gonna go with that. Like I said, so. But yeah, it's just an interesting thing to think about. I didn't want to stay on that too much, but yeah, food items is definitely cool. Now, what's more interesting to me is the whole thing with the grave markers. Now, that caught my attention because, as you know, with this playthrough that I'm doing now, one of the challenges was to recover grave markers and to make a proper burial for all of the hardcore characters that die in this playthrough. So it looks as though it's possible that placing a certain amount of grave markers in a single area might curse the area. That's cool. I'm not sure how that will affect my gameplay. If the updates aren't specific to a certain type of map, because it might be only a nightmare mode. Oh, I'm sorry, a master mode feature, or it could be something where a certain boss might need to be dead for it to happen. Like it could be locked behind a lot of things, so there's no guarantee that it's something that you can just start off doing right away. But if that actually affects my my playthrough, like that'll be cool. I'm really interested in exactly how that works and what it does. But yeah, it's always like I said, it's always cool to have little quality of life type things. Like I love stuff like that. Little added features. I don't know if it's gonna be its own little event. Like I said, I have no idea. It might even summon a boss. Who knows? So this is more of a this is more of the I wouldn't call them useless features, but sort of like the features that were added that I don't think are necessary, but they add that little bit of charm. And I wasn't sure how far the team planned to go with the whole feature of adding wind to the game, but I mean, they really went all out. So let's talk about some of those things. The pinwheels, the little pinwheel toys, caught my attention right away. The wind socks, the windcock, or the weather vanes, like that's going to be a nice addition for maybe if you have windstorms. I'm not even sure if a windstorm is a thing that can happen, but it'll actually make sense to probably build a house in the desert when you get a sandstorm, because like the pinwheels, the windsocks, the weather vane, the flags, the banners, all of that stuff, like any leaves that you might have flying around, like that's just gonna be really cool to look at. And of course they have the kites and stuff. I'm not sure how far they're gonna go, like if you can hang kites by themselves. Like there might be a lot of things that you can do. This is just what we've seen, but I really want to see what it looks like during a windstorm when you have all of these items just kind of sitting around as decoration. like the vines too, how they blow in the wind. That's gonna be really cool to look at. And the reason that I say that is because I'm one of those players who like worlds that continue to uh, be active and continue to be alive even when my character's idle. I like to just wake up to the world just doing its thing, like revolving not necessarily around me, but just moving and just being alive, and which is why I like a server. I guess that will probably explain things a little more. It's like that's why I like servers. Is no matter what you're doing, the world's constantly like changing around you, regardless of whether you decide to move or not. And I like waking up to that. Like I'm the type of person who will have my character looking out a window, and I'll just sit there and do other things. And just I like the just the music. Like I don't know. Like Terraria is one of those games where I enjoy it even when I'm not playing it. So the wind to me is really like a really cool feature. Like I can't wait to just wake up to a windstorm and just see like leaves and kites and windsocks just blowing in the breeze. Like it's gonna be really cool to look at. I know I'm weird, but like that's why I said I love Terraria, because it's a really interesting game where you get a lot of things here that you can't get in other places. So yes, new pets, new summons, new mounts, new vanity sets. I mean, what more can you ask for? Like, I'm with all of it. So that's pretty much all that I wanted to cover with the reveals as far as the 1.4.0 update or the Journey's End update goes. Like that's gonna be cool. I was expecting more Terraria, but I wasn't expecting this much more Terraria, and I'm not mad at it. Like that is really cool. So what you're looking at now are some spoilers from me. This is an adventure map that I've been working on, and I had no plans on revealing any of it until the 1.4.0, which was the 1.3.6 update, came out. But I mean, everything changed, so I'm like, okay, well, I guess maybe I could change too. How about I actually share some of what I'm working on rather sooner than later? Because I mean, there's so much cool stuff coming out that probably won't be featured in this map, because I really do want to base it as much as I can off the 1.3.5 updates and any other new features, because this map's gonna kind of be an epic project in a lot of ways, and I don't want to spoil exactly how that'll be or how it'll work, but I might add some 1.3.6 elements, but I'm not going to be able to make a distinction between what's 1.3.6 and what's 1.4.0. So perhaps I might stick to 1.3.5 things. I guess it depends on what gets released, because if some features are just so cool that I can't pass it up, I just might add it. But for now, I do want to try to keep it based on the 1.3.5 to 6 updates as much as possible, because I want this adventure map to represent what I think's great about those additions. And because I like I said, I feel like Terraria is a complete game. It has been for a while, so I kind of want to showcase that and not kind of deviate from it. But there's a few things I forgot to talk about. So I talked about how I like to kind of just wake up to my game running and things happening. So I like a lot of times to be actually doing something. So some of the new features, which would be like your character being able to sit down, is cool because I liked doing that in Starbound. But the bestiary, which I didn't really talk about much, is a really great addition, because I like just, I don't know, admiring some of the things about the game that you don't really get to appreciate. Like for example, during an eclipse, it's so chaotic that you don't get to appreciate Mothron, you don't get to appreciate the vampire enemies, you don't get to appreciate the werewolves. It's sort of like everything wants to kill you, so it's really difficult to sit back and just appreciate the amount of detail that was put into the enemies you're fighting. So a bestiary where you can actually look at them and just, I don't know, just kind of appreciate them and just leave it sitting there. I know I'm weird. I like that. That's a feature that I'm probably going to use a lot, and I'm wondering whether it's something that you get from the very beginning, or if it's something that you have to unlock by actually killing enemies. That's going to be cool. So yeah, I talked about the pinwheels, and simple things like sitting by a fireplace is going to be cool. See, I want to sit by a fireplace and just read the bestiary. I mean, because I had a mage character, and I used to just have the character just kind of stand around in his library and do nothing but just kind of do his quote-unquote research. But now it'll actually have some legitimacy to it, like where my mage is doing research on the bestiary. So that's cool. Some predictions, just a few, and some questions. So the first prediction that I had is I'm thinking there's going to be a desert boss. Because of the features that are being added to the desert biome, it seems like not only if it's getting a makeover there, but it's possible that it might have its own distinct boss. And I'm not sure what that will add, but because they're adding so much to the game, I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise. Like, I believe the number was somewhere around 800 new items. Jeez. Like, is that just like usable items? Does that include things that drop so that you can craft new items? I mean, I'm not sure, but 800 still, even if like maybe 1/4 to maybe like 1/3 of those items are just dropped materials, like, and then the real number is somewhere around like 600 or 500. If we're cutting it in half, well, not even necessarily in half, but I mean, if we're still cutting it short, like if we're going to the lowest possible, like the lowest common denominator, like just the bare minimum, that's still a lot to me. 500 new items, because like I said, the game feels complete, so that's a lot in my opinion. So a boss would be interesting, and I'm thinking maybe an advanced version of the tomb crawler. I don't know. I don't want to assume, but a desert boss is definitely a cool concept. I'm wondering when it will appear, but I'm just assuming. There might not even be a desert boss, but I am so certain that that's gonna happen. I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't do it. And I'm wondering if the borders are unlockable, and if another thing that I'm predicting is that the borders are based off of the NPCs, and that's kind of what I'm seeing so far. Because I noticed a border that I would put money on that's a steampunk border, and then I'm guessing the one with the leaves would probably be based off of the wood nymph. Pretty sure that's not her name. Maybe the dryad. Yes, that's her name. So I'm guessing like perhaps a lot of the borders are just based off the NPCs, because I'm pretty sure there's going to be an android border. Oh, that's funny. I didn't realize what I was saying until I just said it. An android border, that would be funny. And then maybe even a mushroom biome border, which would be based off of the truffle NPC. I don't know. It could also be NPC and biomes specific, but I know there's no steampunk biome, which is why I would probably lean more towards them being based on the NPCs. Or maybe there's no rules at all. Maybe there are just as many borders in there as they had the ideas to create. So I don't know, but I like I said, I like that customization. That's a pretty cool concept. Of course, the mini games. My favorite being Boulder Ball, but I'm not sure if there's going to be a feature where getting a projectile to hit a very specific target will keep score in the same way that something like mini golf will. And if they do, then I mean, it can be anything from soccer to boulder ball. I mean, I could get really creative if some kind of sensor gets created that keeps score. Like, I mean, you could have a proper game of boulder ball or soccer. Like, I would definitely be on board with that. So, as I said, I do suspect that there will be new bosses included in the 1.4.0 update. And when I say that, I mean bosses plural, but there is one new boss that we know about, whose name I believe is the Blood Nautilus. Now, what's interesting about this boss, and I was gonna say mini boss, but I don't think there's a such thing as that in Terraria. Yeah, I think there's just, well, maybe, because I'm thinking about the ice golems now. Like, I think those might be considered a mini boss, but I believe bosses that require you to summon them, even though you don't necessarily have to fight them, and they're optional, like, that's just considered a boss. But anyway, so the boss that we do know about, the Blood Nautilus, I have questions. So maybe this is answered, but as I said, I came into Terraria in a very unique and interesting way. So one of the pieces of information I've never seen, and I only discovered by, of course, going on servers, like I said, was how to summon Duke Fishron. Now, maybe there's an adventure or some kind of quest that leads you to summoning him, and if it is, that I suspect that it has something to do with the truffle NPC, but I've never seen that dialogue. Like, I've never seen anything about a legend of Duke Fishron, hints about going to the ocean biome and summoning Duke Fishron. Like, I don't recall ever seeing any of that. Now, again, it could easily be part of the game that I've just never seen before, because as I said before, there's a lot about Terraria that I just don't know. But the question that I have is the Blood Nautilus going to be part of an actual quest that gives you a hint on how to summon Duke Fishron, or will the Blood Nautilus be given its own quest, and then Duke Fishron given a quest if Duke Fishron doesn't already have one? Because I'm under the impression that there is no quest. So I'm not sure. That's one of the things that I'm curious about. Because yeah, I've never seen an NPC say anything. And then I'm curious: is the Blood Nautilus ocean biome exclusive? Is it an ocean biome only boss? Because I don't know. Like, I always had this suspicion that the enemies that come out during the blood moon had some relation to the Crimson, but that might not be true. Because, okay, so this is my thought process, is I was thinking that it might be a possibility that the Blood Nautilus might be able to be summoned two ways. Maybe during a blood moon in the ocean biome, and maybe also in the Crimson if there's a deep enough water source. And I'm thinking because they might do something interesting like that. Because under normal circumstances, of course, you wouldn't be able to do that because the water wouldn't be deep enough, right? And I think it would have to fit a certain criteria before you could summon the boss. And this is me just assuming, because if I recall correctly, summoning Duke Fishron requires you to be in the ocean biome. Like, I don't think there's any other possible way to summon him. I don't even think you can duplicate an ocean biome in the middle of your map and then summon him. I think you absolutely have to be on the edge of the map, um, and things like that. But again, I'm not certain. I'm not 100% sure about that. So that's why I have questions. You know, I'm also wondering, like, is there something similar to the shrimpy truffles that you have to use when fishing specifically to summon the blood nautilus? Is it a random chance option where perhaps you're just fishing in the during a blood moon? Because I mean, that seems like enough of a requirement. Like perhaps you're just doing normal fishing, but because it's a blood moon, it increases your chances of summoning the blood nautilus. I don't know. It's just one of those things that I'm curious about. That's kind of what I mean. I don't know enough about I would say Duke Fishron specifically, and I bring up Duke Fishron mostly because I believe, at least from what I've saw in the reveal trailer, that they're summoned in a very similar way. So perhaps you don't need a specific bait. Perhaps you just need the specific event to be active, and then your chances for summoning the blood nautilus might increase. Or perhaps it has to be a blood moon, and you also need a certain fishing item. I mean, it could be many things. I'm just assuming here. Like I have no idea, but it's interesting to think about. That's something that I've been wondering the entire time, and I guess I just wanted to discuss it a little bit. So lastly, and I know this might seem a bit out of order, I want to kind of talk about the Sharkman enemy. I'm not sure exactly what it's called. I'm sure it already has an official name, but the it looks like a Blood Moon event enemy too. I'm curious about okay, so when I saw the enemy, it reminded me of the option for the player to transform into a werewolf and a merman while equipping I forgot the name of the item, but it's like the celestial star item when you combine it together. But anyway, it just makes it so that you get a power boost at night, I think, and then you are allowed to breathe underwater. I forgot everything that it does. It does a few things, but the more specific thing is the whole being able to breathe underwater and the turning into a werewolf at night. Now, the reason that I say that is because that enemy looks like it might swim really fast underwater, but once it like gets out of the water, it can walk around on land, whereas most ocean life enemies, when they reach land, they're kind of helpless, especially the sharks. So I thought that enemy was interesting because it probably swims really fast like a shark, but it's also quite a threat on land. So I'm thinking it's maybe, and this is just off the top of my head, it's maybe the only land sea creature that exists in Terraria, aside from the wraiths, who I think just don't care about anything. Like there's wraiths and there's other enemies that I think just don't care what kind of terrain or liquid they're in. They move the same speed, and the boss is included, I think, and they don't care. They just move the same speed. Mimics are included in that. So, but I mean, for all of the types of enemies that are forced to interact with the actual environment, I'm thinking that just off the top of my head might be the only land sea creature. So I'm curious if that's a hard mode. Yeah, I'm wondering about both the Blood Nautilus and the Sharkman enemy. Are they both hard mode enemies? And especially with the Sharkman, if it comes out during the blood moon only, right? Is it like the merman werewolf buff? Because what I'm thinking is, and this is why I'm curious, is there another transformation option where, because I would love, okay, so this is kind of what I'm getting at. I would love, instead of a merman, to turn into a sharkman. And I'm not sure if that's an option. But I think it would be cool. Instead of a werewolf merman combination, you can turn into a sharkman and perhaps another type of enemy we haven't seen yet. But yeah, I was just kind of curious about that. And I wonder how fast it is. Like, I wonder what kind of attacks the sharkman has. It's just interesting to think about. I want to see how that enemy approaches. Like, there's a lot of things that I'm curious about with that specific enemy. But I mean, just in general, like a lot of things with the 1.4.0 update, or its proper name, Journey's End. Like, there's just a lot of things that I want to see. So this is just me being a curious fan. I'm so excited. Like, I mean, I was excited for the 1.3.6 update, which is why I even started this walkthrough, because I wanted it to bleed right into my normal gameplay. But it seems as though, like, it's almost like an entire, like, patch update. Like, maybe that's the wrong word, but it seems like an official DLC update. Like, in the same vein, if you've ever played Skyrim, as like Dragonborn DLC, and I forgot the name of the other one. It was Dragonborn and the vampire one. I don't know why I can't think of what it's called. But yes, like, or even I believe it's called Blood Moon from Morrowind, or the Tribunal DLC. Like, it seems so massive. Like, it's gonna add. I suspect that this patch, or it's officially a DLC to me, is gonna change how you play the game from beginning to end, because it looks like there's new summons, new mounts. There's obviously going to be new armor and vanity sets and bosses. So what I'm thinking now is, when I play, if I'm just trying to get through the game really fast, there's a lot of go-to options for me. Like, I'll give a quick example, right? So if I want a quick buff, right, just right away from the very start, so I can go ahead and kill the Eye of Cthulhu, right? My thing is usually to try to go to the Crimson or the Corruption, blow up as many orbs as I can to get a meteor to fall, and then not bother fighting the summoned boss like Brain of Cthulhu or the Eater of Worlds, and then just collect a bunch of bombs or dynamite, blow up the site where the meteor fell, and craft meteorite armor, so then I can start using my ray gun right away, and then immediately start looking for the lightning boots, so I can kill the Eye of Cthulhu. Now, I don't necessarily need the Eye of Cthulhu's armor. My mission is to just get its parts, especially in expert mode, so then I can get the Cthulhu shield so that I can start dashing much sooner. So what I mean is, there's a lot of go-to strategies that exist now, at least for me, and I suspect that a lot of them are going to change drastically because of these updates. So I'm just looking forward to it. I'm really curious about how these changes are going to affect the game and how it is that we normally play it. You know, as I said, I came into Terraria in a very interesting way. So for me, I don't know, this is almost like a rebirthing, you know? Like, I get to probably experience the game the way that I did when I first got into it playing on servers, especially with the option of nightmare mode. Or I'm sorry, it's called I forgot, master. Yes, master mode. I'm just really looking forward to all of this. So yeah, that's my take on it. Cool. So now I've pretty much gotten everything that I wanted to cover out of the way. If it hasn't been made clear, like, I might have been looking forward to the 1.3.6 update, obviously. But man, 1.4.0, huh? I'm not mad. Okay. We're getting a whole DLC, official DLC, with a name label and everything. I'm all for it. I am definitely excited for this. And man, when you think about it, it includes the statues being able to be reversed, dyeing the armors on the statues too. Well, the mannequins. Man, that includes all that stuff. All the stuff we've seen up until now. And this 1.4.0 patch includes all of that stuff. That's just crazy. So, aside from all of that, what happened to me? Why have I been gone so long? So, to be honest with you, when I saw the reveal for the 1.4.0 Journey's End update, I wanted to get the news out to you immediately, but yeah, the internet and power have been going in and out because we've had a series of windstorms here, or hurricanes, and yeah, it's not reliable. So I've had to make this video in pieces, and it took way much more effort than you might think. Like, I really went through it with sleepless nights and everything trying to get this out. But I'm not gonna just blame it on the hurricanes. I was actually out just enjoying life, and that's why I haven't been making videos, because, you know, I was just enjoying the company of my friends, going out to dinner, things like that. Just kind of trying to nurture my social life a little bit better, because I've been neglecting it for some time. I've discussed this in other videos if you probably have never seen, because they have to do with Dark Souls content, but it's more so it's a thing that I've kind of been working on. Now, I do want to have some kind of reliable schedule with my YouTube channel, and just with Terraria content as a whole. But yeah, my life has been going through some massive changes, like a lot of it good. I don't have any complaints about my happiness. Like, I'm pretty happy. It's just that it's more so the where I actually want to be type thing. Like, financially, I'm not where I want to be. I want to own a home so I can have a reliable place to go to. You know, I want to be able to invite my friends over, have guests, be a host, you know, have some roommates, set up a game room. Like, there's a lot of things that I want to do that I'm trying to work toward it. So also, I didn't mention the most important thing. I've been working a lot. I've been working morning and night shifts to try to get enough money to get my life in order, because it was in shambles and in total chaos at one point, and I was really down on myself, and things weren't necessarily going my way. But I'm on the upside, and I want to take advantage of it, because I mean, man, I never thought that I would get that low. And I'm sorry that I'm getting so deep. Like, I usually don't do that with this specific content. I keep it very lighthearted, but I mean, I figured I'd be honest with you. I'll try to stick more toward the positive. I mean, this was positive. I'm just being honest about where I was. So just to be clear, like I'm speaking about where I used to be. Where I am now is a much happier place, which is kind of strange when I think about it, because when I was in a dark place, I was playing a lot of Dark Souls, and now that I'm in a more happy space, I'm playing much more Terraria, which is a more lighthearted game. I mean, it could be a coincidence, but it's just I find that to be a little interesting. I feel like the moment that I quit playing Dark Souls, my life changed for the better. That's funny. I don't want to say anything like that, but yeah, I really don't like Dark Souls, so never mind. I'm not taking that back. I'm never touching another Souls game in my life. But yes, that has nothing to do with this. So yes, that's what's been affecting the consistency of the content. It's just life stuff, mostly financial. But I don't know. As soon as I get my finances in order, I'll probably be able to have a more consistent schedule. It's just that I've had to use my time in a stingy way, and really steal joy. Like when my friends call me out, just to spend time with me, I really try to seize the moment, because I'm under the belief that there's no guarantee that they'll be here tomorrow, and I don't think it'll happen anytime soon, but there's a possibility that I might be in that dark place again, and I want to have good memories to take with me. And so far, like, I have a ton. It's crazy. Like, I almost feel that I could relate to that meme that has SpongeBob with the little narrow eyes looking, where it says, "When my life goes well for 2 days straight," and he has that suspicious look on his face. And it's sort of one of those things where I went through that whole moment, but then 2 days turned to a week, and then a week to a month, and then a month to 3-4 months. So I'm just accepting it as it is, and I'm not expecting anything to go wrong. It's just these happy moments, I really want to steal them. And it's, it costs. It's not free. Time is not free. But this update was important. I really wanted to get really wanted to get my perspective out there, because I feel like it's important. I almost feel as though, from seeing a few of the other content creators' responses, that I feel like mine is probably really important to hear, because I took for granted just how unique my experience is with this game, and perhaps it needed to be heard. I don't know, like maybe I might add something interesting to the conversation. At least I felt that I did. But yes, I guess that wraps it up. I won't keep trying to talk your ear off, but I just tried to pack this video with as much information and content as I can, because I do owe you all quite a bit, because I've been away for, I think, at least, maybe a month or two. That's a long time. So yes, thanks very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time, much sooner than later. All right, bye.